Hello and welcome to Got Clutter, Get Organized, the conversation. I'm excited about this conversation because we're going to be talking about mental health because it's that time of year. It's the end of the year. It's the holiday season. It's just so much going on, which is why I brought on an expert, Anitra Green, and she is the CEO of Tailor Made Behavioral Health Solutions. So Anitra, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And this is an excellent topic. We need more of these conversations. So thank you so much for having me.
So before we get into the topic, what made you decide to be the CEO of this company?
Listen, I think I'm going to sum it up in one word: pandemic. I opened up my business in the height of COVID as a mental health professional, and not just am I a mental health professional, but being a woman of color, knowing that only 3 to 4% of mental health professionals are people of color. I couldn't think of a better time to support people. And it was something that I've always wanted to do. And when the world shifted to telehealth and remote, and I saw the way that mental health was going, I decided that this would be a good time for me. And I'm so glad that I did. I am so glad that I did because I've been moving ever since, virtually.
And that's a good thing because you are needed. So my first question is, why do you believe this time of year? We kind of talked about it a little bit because the seasons change and it's the holiday. And of course, there's so many other things because of your experience. What are like the reasons why this time of year, we just really become either depressed, overwhelmed, we feel like, we really can't cope anymore?
It's a few things, and that's a great question. I think I'm going to start with the shifting of the seasons. So there is really something called seasonal affective disorder. The acronym is SAD, and that is exactly how people feel, is sad. And that absence of sunlight, I think we take the sun for granted. We love the sun. It makes us happy. That's why the summer is so popular. But when that absence of sunlight happens, it literally changes our mood. I think everybody to some extent is affected at minimal by the absence of the sunlight. But there are people who have a diagnosis of seasonal affective disorder where their mood shifts significantly to the point where they have to engage in things like light sensitivity therapy, where they have these lights that you can get that gives off the extra rays. I encourage people to seek counseling. It's also an isolated time. It's cold. It's the winter. We're not socializing as much. Add on to it the holidays. So then here comes the grief waves. For those who are struggling with grief, everything about the holidays reminds us who's missing. The food, the celebrations, the pictures on social media, the families in pajamas, and then everybody that is grieving is reminded of the people that they are not celebrating. And that song, New Year's just ain't New Year's and Christmas just ain't Christmas without the ones you love. It's the truth. It just feels very different. And the last thing that I will add is the inability, the stress. So not only are we not able to get out, it's getting colder. So those afternoon walks that we're taking right now, they start to kind of fall back. But then we also have the stress of the holidays. And let's be honest, as beautiful as they are, a lot of people get stressed. They get stressed about the financial impact of shopping. They get stressed about people overspend. People feel overcommitted. They're spending what we don't have because we feel obligated. And it's really not about that. The truth is that the holidays, if you're celebrating Christmas, is really about love and giving, but it's not about going for broke. And I think that the commercialized version of the holidays, if you're buying into that, it is very stressful. And I let that go a long time ago. I was like, yeah, this ain't for me because we have all of this fun in November and December. And in January, everybody's like stalking the mailman for income tax checks because we've overspent. So I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people overdo it. And then we pay for it in the new year. And we enter in the new year stressed out. And so we have to stop these cycles.
And you touched on something a lot of people don't touch on. It's like, yeah, we do try to keep up with the Joneses or whoever. And by January, like you said, we're afraid to open up the mail. But you just talked about a lot of different things like the weather, just a change in the season. And I realized that I was even impacted because one day I was just sitting here and I was just kind of like, I'm not feeling like my happy self. And I've realized it was because of the sun, but also it was just a change in the temperature. It was like that drastic change. And I was like, Janet, just put some heat on, okay? Maybe that'll make you feel better. But you're right about the holidays. And sometimes we begin to think about the people who are no longer here or, the foods and or the pajamas. And you don't want to look on social media because your life doesn't look like that. So what are some strategies for people who may right now feeling like, you know what, Anitra's talking to me. And I got to figure out how I can feel better this holiday season and not feel like all the previous ones. What are some things people can do?
It starts with being honest with yourself. And I'm going to say this as a licensed mental health professional, that if you know that you are not okay, it's okay to admit that. And the question is, what are we going to do about that, right? I am always going to be an advocate for those who know that they are struggling. Number one, be gracious to yourself. Be honest with yourself. If you are a person who likes to write, I would encourage journaling. You can actually see and track your mood. Well, I noticed that, when it gets close to payday time, I get really stressed. Or I noticed that during the holidays, I'm really stressed, but then I don't feel like this during the spring and the summer. I would encourage people to not isolate. If you are already struggling with depression or anxiety and you tend to stay on an island, there is so much power and resources in being supported. We need people. We need each other. So I encourage people not to isolate. Also, it's okay to go to counseling. I think that especially in communities of color, we look at counseling as something must be wrong, and it's or people are lacking faith, or it doesn't take all of that. But really, counseling is just an opportunity to express yourself. We carry a lot. We carry a lot of weight. We carry our own stressors. We carry stressors for our families. Oftentimes we're interconnected and we're shouldering other people's burdens. Sometimes we're stressed out from work. We have families. We have businesses. We have a lot going on. And just being able to be self-aware. So doing the self-care, taking the walks, taking a mental health day off from work, taking time out to take a vacation or a staycation. I mean, I like to travel, so I'm going to say vacate. I like to leave the premises. But even if you're a person and you don't like to travel, let's say you don't like to fly or drive or do any of that, sometimes just having a week to do nothing where we're not committed to anything. We live in this grind culture and we really don't take time to rest. Rest is healing. Rest is therapeutic. And a lot of times we're not even getting enough of the basic things. Healthy nutrition, giving your body the right types of food, staying hydrated. Those are just some examples of just basic things that you can do for yourself. Doing nothing is a good thing.
And it's interesting how you said basic, because when you said that, I thought about some of the conversations I had with people in corporate, and some of them don't even do lunches and breaks. And I'm like, why? That's a way just to have a moment to pause during your workday. And also you can replenish yourself. You can rejuvenate yourself. There's so many different things. So you're right. And I do like to take a staycation every now and then, Anitra. And, specifically, I know like during the Christmas season, between Christmas and New Year's, things are like a little slow because everybody's more focused on family things. So sometimes I'll take those moments and just like do nothing. So those really help as well. Now I've tried to tell people sometimes we even have to change our thought behind doing nothing. Because some of us were told when you do nothing, it means you're lazy. No, it doesn't. It means that I'm just resting because I'm tired. So I really like what you said. And I really like just some of the simple things that we can do. And even like you said, just kind of really knowing what's going on. I know after my mother passed, it was like, okay, what do I do for Thanksgiving and Christmas? Well, everybody's inviting me somewhere. So I'll just go somewhere. And I realize that helps me because, or else I'll just stay in a house by myself. Woe is me. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. So also, like, how do you, because I know you do a lot. You're an author, which I want you to talk about your book in a few, but you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a counselor, you're this, that. How do you stay organized?
So that is a great question. And I used to say to myself that I'm going to have to get more organized because I know that for those of us who are not naturally organized, I had to learn how to become organized over time. Some people are excellent with it and it's a natural gift. And then there are those of us that have to work at it. I am one of those that have to work at it. I live by a calendar. I have reminders in my phone. I have reminders that go off the day before, an hour before, and 10 minutes before. Because in the midst of the hustle and bustle, if I set a reminder an hour and then I get busy, I need reminders. I also make sure that I am syncing my calendars, understanding what my commitments are, and also just making sure that I'm not overcommitted. I'm not going to do 3 events. And there's times that I've been invited to do something, 2 or 3 things in one day. And I'll say, you know what, I'm going to do this event on, November the 23rd. I'm not going to do anything else that day. I'll do something the following week. So I just pace myself. I make sure that I am keeping my communication open. I over communicate because when there's a lack of communication, things can get disorganized. And that happened this weekend. Someone called me and said, "Oh, I called the library about your book launch and they had your business name." And it was just a little bit of miscommunication. But then when I called, everything was straightened out and organized. So I do also think that because I am an over communicator, I make sure that because communication and organization go together. When people are not talking, things can get chaotic. So I make sure that everybody knows what they're doing, when they're doing it, and then I confirm that people know what they're doing. So those are some of the ways.
That's good. That's some strategies that all of us can use. So I want you to let people know how they can connect with you, but also I want you to talk about your book.
Sure. So should I do the book first? I'm looking at it and I'm excited every time somebody says book. So as a new author, I want to show everyone my new baby. My book is called The Day Grandpop's Music Stopped, and it is available on Barnes & Nobles and on Amazon. And this book is about two children's journey, their grief journey. They are told, I'll read the back of the cover if you don't mind. And Nathan are picked up from school early by their mom and dad, and they can tell that there is something different about this day. They're told some news about Grandpop that bring up many questions and some very big feelings. They learn about what grief means and how it makes their mind and body feel. In the end, they learn that while life may come to an end, love and memories never do. And my inspiration for writing this book is that oftentimes when adults are grieving, we try to hide grief from children and they're being left out of the conversation. So because we don't think that they understand it. And so because we don't know what to say, we don't say anything at all. But they are grieving. And in their own ways. I always say kids grieve in spurts. It's kind of like being in Florida on a rainy day in the summer. It rains really hard for 10 minutes and then it's dry. And that's what their grief looks like. They cry and they're upset and then they go play. And we think because they're playing that they're not grieving, but they are. But that's just how their grief looks. So this story really is to support families and help start the conversation with the younger children. So when I say younger, I'm thinking 3 to like 9 with pictures and stories, and they can see Tia and Nathan and how they're handling it and how it's making their body feel and then make the connection. So I'm hoping that as we're approaching the holiday season where grief is high, that people, begin to have the conversations. Your children are missing their grandparents and their parents and their uncles and their aunties and other people who have passed away. And so I'm trying to take the anxiety and the complexity out of talking about it by putting it into something that's fun and simple. So you can find me on Facebook at TaylorMade BHS, TaylorMade BHS, which stands for Behavioral Health Solutions. My Instagram is the same, and my website is www.taylormadebhs.com. If you want to see what TaylorMade is doing, we are doing, again, workshops. I specialize in grief. I'm now an author, so I am on a book tour coming soon and just enjoying this space as an author. And as I always say that I am now healing through storytelling. I've done a lot of other avenues of counseling, but now that I'm putting the information that I know in a book, it's exciting. It's a very different way to deliver my knowledge, but it's also effective for children.
And of course, I will have all Anitra's information in the show notes so you can connect with her directly. And of course, why don't you get a copy of the book? Start the conversation during it, because sometimes the holidays are rough for all of us. So why not start the conversation as like a family gathering? Make it like almost a little tradition where if something happens in the family, you take the book out and you just start the conversation. Because I think that's where the healing starts, is with the conversation. Well, Anitra, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. Everybody take care and be well.